Trump gave Iran 48 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz or face total destruction of their power grid. That deadline expired. Iran is still blocking the strait, and America did nothing. Let me be very clear. This is not a diplomatic victory. This is not a deal. This is a blink, and the consequences are going to be felt by every single American at the gas pump, at the grocery store, and at the ballot box. Here's what actually happened. All of it. From the beginning. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched coordinated airstrikes on Iran under Operation Epic Fury military facilities, nuclear sites, command centers, and in those strikes, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed. The man who ran Iran for over 3 decades was gone. Think about what that means for a moment. The Islamic Republic of Iran, a regime built around one man's ideology, one man's authority, suddenly had no center of gravity, and instead of collapsing, they hit back. Hard Iranian missiles rained down on Israeli cities, on U.S. bases in the UAE, in Qatar, in Bahrain, casualties, infrastructure damage, American service members wounded on foreign soil, and then, Iran made its most consequential move. On March 2, 2026, a senior IRGC official stood in front of cameras and said 4 words that shook the global economy. The strait is closed. Pay attention to this. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. 21 miles. That's roughly the distance from downtown Washington, D.C. to Dulles Airport, and through that 21-mile gap flows 20 million barrels of oil every single day. That is 20% of all the oil traded on Earth, moving through a channel barely wider than some American counties. Saudi oil, UAE oil, Iraqi oil, Qatari gas, all of it, passing through that narrow throat between Iran and Oman, and on March 2nd, Iran closed it. Here's what they're not telling you. American intelligence officials told CBS News that Iran has placed at least a dozen underwater mines inside the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian-manufactured Maham-3 and Maham-7 limpet mines. Mines. In the water. Right now. I spent 30 years reading intelligence reports, and I want you to understand what that means practically. A limpet mine is a magnetic device that attaches directly to the hull of a ship below the waterline. You cannot see it from the deck. You cannot detect it without specialized equipment, and when it detonates, it can split an oil tanker in half. These are not warning shots. These are not demonstrations of force. These are weapons pre-positioned to kill. Before this conflict, 120 ships transited the Strait of Hormuz every single day. By March 12th, Iran had made 21 confirmed attacks on merchant ships. Tanker traffic dropped 70%. Over 150 ships dropped anchor outside the strait and refused to move. By Monday, March 23rd, 5 ships passed through the strait in an entire day. 5. That's not an open waterway. That's a stranglehold. Iran's Defense Council made their position crystal clear. Any attack on Iran's coasts or islands would trigger mine-laying across Gulf sea lanes that could effectively block maritime traffic beyond even the narrow strait itself. They are not bluffing. I've seen this pattern before. When a regime starts pre-positioning mines, they are telling you they are prepared to fight a long, grinding, asymmetric campaign, not a quick surrender, not a negotiated exit, a grinding war of economic attrition. So let's talk about what Trump actually did. On Saturday, March 21st, Trump issued one of the most aggressive ultimatums in modern American presidential history. He posted it in all caps on Truth Social. Open the Strait of Hormuz. Fully, without threat, within 48 hours. Or the United States will destroy Iran's power plants, starting with the biggest one first. The whole world was watching. Markets moved. Oil prices shifted. Military analysts went on television. Allies braced. Iran's response was immediate and unambiguous. If you touch our power plants, we shut down the strait completely. Not partially. Completely. And we strike energy infrastructure across the entire region. Desalination plants, oil terminals, refineries, Pay attention to this. Iran was not just threatening military targets. They were threatening the drinking water of millions of civilians across the Middle East. Desalination plants are what turn seawater into drinking water for countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, nations with almost no natural freshwater sources. Destroy those facilities, and you have a humanitarian catastrophe within days. Iran was essentially saying, if you escalate, we will turn this entire region into a disaster zone that the United States will own forever. That is a sophisticated strategic threat, not the move of a regime on its last legs. The 48 hours passed. Monday morning came, and Trump went on social media. We have had very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. He said talks were ongoing. He said there were major points of agreement. He said the strikes on Iranian power plants were postponed for 5 days. 5 days. Here's what they're not telling you. Iran's foreign ministry responded within hours. Their spokesperson Esmail Bakay said, and I want you to hear this clearly, there is no dialogue between Tehran and Washington. No dialogue, no talks, no deal. The President of the United States announced a diplomatic breakthrough. Iran said the breakthrough does not exist. Someone is lying. And it's not hard to figure out who. Now. Trump's people insisted talks were happening through intermediaries. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, regional back channels. They say conversations happened as recently as Sunday evening. I've been in rooms where this kind of thing happens. Here's what back-channel diplomacy actually looks like. You talk to a Qatari official. He talks to an Omani official. The Omani official has a cousin in Tehran. Somewhere down that chain, a message gets passed. That is not a negotiation. That is a telephone game played between governments. And Trump called it a deal. Why would he do that? Think about it. There are two possibilities. One, Trump genuinely believes progress is being made, and he is giving diplomacy a real chance before ordering strikes that could kill thousands of Iranian civilians and potentially drag the entire region into full-scale war. Two, Trump needed a reason to delay. The military wasn't ready. The political support wasn't there. The allies weren't with him. And a social media post about productive conversations was the cleanest way to buy time without looking weak. Let me be very clear. Both of those things could be true simultaneously, and neither of them is a reason to feel comfortable about what comes next. Here is a detail that is being completely buried by mainstream media. 22 countries signed a joint statement declaring their willingness to contribute to ensuring safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. 22 countries, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, Bahrain, the UAE. They signed the paper, and then Trump asked them to actually escort ships through the strait. Germany said no. Spain said no. Italy said no. The United Kingdom said no. Australia said no. Japan said no. South Korea said no. The European Union said no. They will sign a statement. They will not send their ships. I've seen this pattern before. In 30 years of watching American foreign policy, I have watched this exact dynamic play out over and over again. Allies will stand with America on paper. They will attend the press conferences. They will issue the joint communiques. And when it is time to actually put sailors in harm's way, they go home. Trump's response was revealing. He said, and I'm quoting, "The Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed by other